On December 29th, 2023, South Africa brought forth a case against Israel, accusing it of genocide against the Palestinian people.
The scale of Palestinian child killings in Gaza is such that UN chiefs have described it as a graveyard for children.
The charge of genocide is meritless.
Palestinians have now endured 100 days of war.
3 months of death, destruction, and forced displacement, backed by Western powers and Western weapons.
Of course you have a right to self-defense. The question is how you're prosecuting and using that right.
Israel is the only military force in the world that warns civilians before bombing them. I mean, how fucking cute.
This is the story of South Africa versus Israel in defense of the Palestinians. What's fascinating by this case is that Israel's finally on the spotlight in front of a relatively independent court. It can't hide behind the US, the UK and other Western powers that are supporting it. And I find the responses from Netanyahu and other Israeli officials really uncomfortable.
We are trying to assist aid organizations with their distribution problems. We do this because our war is against Hamas, not against the people of Gaza.
So awkward. What's also super interesting is that the world can finally ask legitimately, without getting a ton of abuse from people, is Israel an apartheid state? I've been asking this for a long time. I went to Hebron in the West Bank a few times and it's clear as day that there's apartheid. Before I get ahead of myself, let's just look at exactly what the case is. What are they accusing Israel of?
The first genocidal act committed by Israel is the mass killing of Palestinians in Gaza.
At the heart of the case is the allegation of genocide against the Palestinian people, particularly in the Gaza Strip. South Africa claims that Israel's actions in Gaza constitute acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial or religious group.
We are putting a complete siege on Gaza. No electricity, no food, no water, no gas, it's all closed. We're fighting animals and are acting accordingly.
There is an extraordinary feature in this case that Israel's political leaders, military commanders, and persons holding official positions have systematically and in explicit terms declared their genocidal intent.
You must remember what Amalek has done to you.
This refers to the biblical command by God to Saul for the retaliatory destruction of an entire group of people. And these statements are then repeated by soldiers on the ground in Gaza.
So basically what Thembeka Mjukatobi is basically arguing is that the rhetoric, the genocidal rhetoric, is coming from the very top, from Netanyahu, his government, from the Knesset, from the military leaders. And this is all seeping down to the regular IDF soldiers who are basically repeating this rhetoric and actually carrying out the genocide themselves on the ground. This is a crucial aspect, as the Genocide Convention, to which both Israel and South Africa are parties, not only prohibits genocide, but also conspiracy to commit genocide and direct and public incitement to genocide. So just yesterday, the IDF went to the last remaining university in Gaza, put 315 mines in a really controlled way, and filmed it. It makes me really angry watching this. Got to really question their intentions. They claimed that Hamas were operating from the university, but it wasn't like an airstrike where Hamas is there with guns and rocket launchers or something. They literally had full control of this university and they made the choice to blow it up, basically. South Africa's argument hinges on proving both the specific acts committed and the intent behind these acts. The entire case hinges on proving intent. There's also a part in the Geneva Convention which talks about complicity to genocide. So this is not only putting Israel on trial, it's actually putting any government, including the Biden administration, UK government, any government which is supporting genocide, i.e. supporting Israel in its bombardment of Gaza. So this is putting a lot of pressure on governments around the world, especially from the opposition within those governments.
Every human being would say you don't cut people's water supply off, but I'm asking you in your position as Foreign Secretary, if Israel have the power to turn the water back on that they turned off, surely that is a flagrant breach of international humanitarian law.
Well, I'm not a lawyer.
The whole point here, the government's being asked very difficult questions, and they're also being put on the spot on whether or not they think it's genocide.
The attempt to weaponize the term genocide against Israel in the present context does more than tell the court a grossly distorted story.
Israel, of course, denies all allegations. It's claiming that everything is Hamas's fault, and Hamas has embedded itself so deeply in civil society, it's firing rockets from schools, from universities, from residential buildings, that Israel has a really difficult job, but it has the right and the obligation, in fact, to defend its own citizens from a terrible terror attack which happened on October 7th.
What is actually unparalleled and unprecedented is the degree to which Hamas has entrenched itself within the civilian population.
The jurisdiction of the ICJ is only around genocide. It does not have any accountability around apartheid or other laws which relate to war.
The only category before this court is genocide.
What the lawyers in defense of Israel are arguing, that any preliminary measures asking or demanding Israel to withdraw its forces would actually prohibit Israel to defend its own citizens, which it believes it has a full obligation to do against a terrorist organization. Ultimately, the ruling in the years to come over whether Israel is guilty of genocide or not is less important than to the immediate ramifications. For example, South Africa looks likely to win a preliminary order in the coming weeks to stop Israel's military campaign in Gaza, arguing that the allegations of genocide are plausible and there is a risk of irreparable harm. Second, governments across the world are being scrutinized for their support internally. Thirdly, there's a potential to educate the Israeli public, compel Israeli decision makers, and have an impact on Israeli policies.